Golden Blue back with another video just for you. So if you're a college football fan, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It is a long off season and I'm here to get you through it. Also, don't forget to check out our Patreon page. A lot of time and effort going into that, and membership starts as low as $2 a month. That is spare change you can find around your house. We also have a great website designed and created by Joey Foster. 8 great writers led by our head writer Michael Walker. And I can't forget to mention our merchandise store. We have a lot of stuff over there. In fact, I've ordered 2 t-shirts, the gold one and the blue one. Can't wait to get them so I can show them off to everybody. But today we're going to talk about the messy breakup between Brian Kelly and Notre Dame. This has gotten very, very interesting. Downright childish, to be honest with you. So we all know that Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU for a 10-year contract worth $95 million. That's a lot of money. But before this, Brian Kelly's name had been mentioned in other coaching openings. But he kept reassuring Notre Dame fans that no amount of money would take him from Notre Dame. That turned out to be a lie. Now, on the other hand, after all this went down, Notre Dame social media has ripped Brian Kelly apart. They claim that Notre Dame didn't win a national championship because of Brian Kelly, not because of Notre Dame. Brian Kelly is the all-time winningest coach at Notre Dame. In 12 years, he went 113-40, starting in 2010 when he went 8-5, won the Sun Bowl. 2011, 8-5, lost the Champ Sports Bowl. 2012, 12-1, but he lost in the BCS National Championship convincingly to Alabama. 2013, 9-4, won the Pinstripe Bowl. 2014, 8-5, won the Music City Bowl. 2015, 10-3, but lost the Fiesta Bowl to Ohio State. 2016, that abysmal 4-8. 2017, 10-3, won the Citrus Bowl. 2018, 12-1, but lost in the Cotton Bowl, which was the playoffs against Clemson. 2019, went 11-2, won the Camping World Bowl. In 2020, he went 10-2, lost in the Rose Bowl in the playoffs to Alabama. And then this past year, 2021, he went 11-2 and lost in the Fiesta Bowl to Oklahoma State. But as you can see, he wasn't able to win the big bowl games. And according to Notre Dame, his biggest fails were he couldn't win the major bowl games, and we saw in his record right there that is the case. He wasn't competitive whenever Notre Dame was on the biggest stage. That's pretty much saying the same thing. No national championship, of course, and had a watered down schedule, which is why he had so much success. That's Notre Dame literally saying, hey, we watered down the schedule for Brian Kelly so he could have success. I honestly didn't see that one coming. And they literally listed every single bad in-game coaching decision that Brian Kelly made. And they claimed that he didn't put in the work to recruit at a higher level, that it was all done by his assistants. You talk about throwing shade. Notre Dame has thrown major shade on Brian Kelly. So here's Brian Kelly's side of the story. He claims that Notre Dame doesn't have the facilities to win a national championship. He said he asked for a new players facility with a dining hall, and that Notre Dame actually said that they would do that, but they started dragging their feet on it. And that quote, it's been on the books since 2016, meaning Notre Dame's told him they were going to upgrade that since 2016, but it hasn't happened. And his biggest knock on Notre Dame is they served pre-cooked meals to players instead of having a personal chef for the team. Oh yeah, and also academic standards make it hard to win at Notre Dame. So that was his excuses. In comes Marcus Freeman, and here's Notre Dame's take on Marcus Freeman. Well, first of all, Notre Dame does have the #1 recruiting class in year 1 for 2023. They've labeled him as the anti-Brian Kelly, not an excuse maker. He's a doer and hired a staff filled with doers, and he's embraced Notre Dame's uniqueness. So Notre Dame is extremely high on Marcus Freeman so far. Another thing they've thrown major shade on as it relates to Brian Kelly was the meeting he had with the players to tell them he was leaving to go to LSU. Multiple sources indicated that Brian Kelly's address to the team on Tuesday morning lasted for less than 2 minutes. Then he turned around and walked out. He did not take questions from the players. And of course, social media, you know social media, once something like that gets put out, they latch onto it and put out as many memes as possible. A lot of good ones out there. Here's what Brian Kelly had to say as it related to his relationship with Notre Dame and his departure from Notre Dame. He said, it's been awesome because you've got incredible facilities. You've got players that want to be great. I want to be in an environment where I have the resources to win a national championship. And I came down here because I want to be in the American League East. I didn't get that last reference. Somebody in the comments section explain that last phrase, the American League East. Anyways, he goes on to say, I felt like I did everything that I could at Notre Dame, and they felt like they did everything they could for me. I felt like we both got to a point where this is what they could do, right? This is what I did, and we couldn't get past that, okay? And so here we are. That one's a little difficult to decipher because he's acting like he did everything he could at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame did everything they could for Brian Kelly to have success. An interesting twist has happened recently, though. Ed Orgeron the former coach of LSU, actually visited a Notre Dame spring practice. Why he did that, I have no idea. But according to Ed Orgeron, he thinks that the current team will win a national championship. Now, I don't know if he was saying they will win a national championship this year or before the next recruiting cycle comes in. Not sure about the timing, but he claims that the current team that Notre Dame has will win a national championship. I guess Ed Orgeron thinks that his opinion means more because he was a former coach at LSU, and that's where Brian Kelly went. And he won a national championship because he was able to catch lightning in a bottle for 1 year. But that's it. That's all he did. So I wanted to compare Notre Dame and LSU, look at their schedule, and see who might do better in 2022. Here's a look at Notre Dame's schedule, and they were preseason ranked number 5 in the FPI rankings. First off, a road trip to Ohio State. That's a loss, guys. I mean, even if Notre Dame had the better team, that's a tough place to win, and I don't think Notre Dame has the better team. After that, they get Marshall at home. I do think that's a win. Then they get Cal at home. I think that's a win as well. Another road trip to North Carolina. I think that's a loss this year. Then they get their bye week. Then they get BYU in Las Vegas. That's basically a home game for BYU. That's a loss for Notre Dame. Stanford at home, I'll give them a win. UNLV at home, I'll say that's a win. On the road to Syracuse, could be tricky, but I'll give them a win. Then they get Clemson at home. I think Clemson will be the better team, and Notre Dame's home field advantage isn't big enough to overcome that. I'm saying a loss right there. Then they get Navy in Baltimore. That's a win. Then they get Boston College at home. That's a win. And finally, a road trip to USC. That's a 50-50 football game. Could go either way. Notre Dame might have the better team, but it is on the road to USC. So I'm saying Notre Dame will either go 8-4 or 7-5 under Marcus Freeman. Now let's look at LSU. Their preseason FPI ranking is number 11. Here's a look at their schedule. First, they get Florida State in New Orleans, basically a home game. I'm saying that's a win for LSU. Then they get FCS Southern at home. That's a win. Mississippi State at home. I think home field advantage prevails here, so I'm giving LSU the win. Then they get New Mexico at home. That's a win. So they start off the season 4-0. That's a pretty good start. Then the road trip to Auburn. That is a tough place to play. Even if LSU does have the better team, I think that's a loss right there. Then they come back home, get Tennessee at home. I think that's a win. Probably an upset win, but I'm saying LSU will win that game. Then a road trip to Florida. LSU has had Florida's number the past few years, and I don't think Florida's going to be all that good this year. So I'm giving LSU the win there. So that's starting off the season 6-1. That's pretty good. They come back home to Ole Miss. I'm giving that a split. Then they get their bye week. Then they get Alabama at home, and that's the other split. So I'm saying they'll lose one and win one between Ole Miss and Alabama at home. After that, a road trip to Arkansas. That's going to be a loss. I think Arkansas is going to be better than what people realize. And they get UAB at home. I'll say that's a win. And finally, a road trip to Texas A&M. That's a loss as well. So if you count that split, I have LSU going 8-4. So from what I can tell, I think LSU and Notre Dame are going to have the same type of season, and that's maybe slightly above average, but nothing to brag about. So I don't think Notre Dame or Brian Kelly will get a leg up on their rivalry now, because both the teams will have a similar record at the end of the year. But who knows? Maybe if that does happen, Notre Dame will end up playing LSU, and that can settle the score. All I'm seeing is a bunch of whining. I don't know who to believe. I'm not really taking any sides because it's all childish to me. One side's throwing mud, the other side's throwing mud back. I don't really care. I'm just saying this is entertaining. And as Lane Kiffin would say, get the popcorn, because this is just the beginning of this mudslinging. There's going to be a lot more of this coming. So y'all let me know in the comments section what you think about this situation. And if you do have a side, which side are you taking? Are you taking Notre Dame's side, or are you taking Brian Kelly's side? This should be a good one in the comments section. I look forward to it. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.